Hi everyone, this is lesson 1.5. We're going to be talking today about our play A Raisin in the Sun, and specifically about the concept of the American dream. So our objective is that students will be able to list different definitions of the American dream and define it for themselves. Our central question that we're talking about is, what is the American dream? And I'm sure you are familiar with this concept. It's really prevalent in books and songs and movies. And so I'm sure that different things come to your mind when you hear this term, American dream. Maybe it is the dream of having a house with a white picket fence and a yard that you can run around and play in. Maybe you think of the immigrant struggle to come to America and find a better life for yourself and your family. Or maybe you think of having a family and having a dog. All of these things are common associations with the American dream. Let's look at the definition that we are going to be talking about for the American dream. The working definition is that the idea that a hardworking and dedicated person can achieve anything that they want to achieve within the American system. This is kind of our traditional definition of the American dream. You might have heard the phrase like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that anyone can work hard and achieve success. The definition was first officially published by someone named James Truslow Adams in 1931, and his definition for the American dream is the dream of a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement. And James Truslow Adams actually related his definition of American dream back to the Declaration of Independence published in 1776 when the United States was founded. The Declaration of Independence states that we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Both of these definitions are basically saying that regardless of who you are in the United States, you should be able to be happy, successful, and wealthy. Okay, so as you're hearing all of these definitions, I'm sure many of us are questioning the American dream a little bit. Is it really possible for anyone and everyone to achieve success in an equal way in the United States? Okay, so we're going to look at 4 different interpretations or challenges of the American dream by 4 different African American scholars throughout history. The first person we are focusing on is Frederick Douglass, who was born in 1818. He escaped slavery after teaching himself to read and write at about the age of 18. He wrote a very famous autobiography of his experiences with slavery and then learning how to read and write and then escaping to freedom. And he became a voice for free and enslaved Black people as a speaker and writer and later even as a statesman. Frederick Douglass believed that the dream of equality, or the American dream, could only be achieved once slavery was abolished. So Frederick Douglass is famous for this quote, "What is the 4th of July to a slave?" And a lot of people traditionally associate the 4th of July with freedom and this idea that Americans can achieve anything they put their minds to. But he said, what is the 4th of July to someone that doesn't have freedom? He believed that the American dream could only be possible once slavery was no longer in place in the United States. The second scholar we're looking at is W.E.B. Du Bois, who was born in 1968. So he was writing and speaking in a time after slavery had been abolished. He was a sociologist, co-founder of the NAACP, and a predecessor of the civil rights movement. He wrote a very famous book called The Souls of Black Folk, published in 1903. I'm pretty sure we have a copy of this on our classroom bookshelf, so if you're interested, go and check that out. And he describes the spiritual destruction that slavery left, and how even though slavery was abolished, it wasn't a thing anymore in the United States, African American people still did not have equal rights, and they were still experiencing oppression in the United States. His argument about the American dream was that African Americans needed political power, civil rights, and higher education in order to achieve equality. So as long as Black people did not have equal access to political power and education, the American dream would not be achieved. Our third Black scholar that we are going to look at is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who I'm sure you are familiar with. Born in 1929, he believed in the American dream, believed that it was possible and that it could be realized or achieved through nonviolent activism. So although he believed that the American dream was possible, he knew that it was not yet a reality for Black people in this country. He spoke often about the American dream. He made this famous speech, his I Have a Dream speech, right, on the March of Washington. And he later even gave a speech titled The American Dream. So he believed that this could be achieved, that it wasn't yet a reality, but we could achieve it through nonviolent activism. Our fourth African American scholar that we're looking at is James Baldwin, and he was alive around a similar time as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a writer, an activist, and a public debater. He gave a famous speech, and a reminder about this word, negro. This is an old-fashioned, outdated term for Black or African American. It's not used anymore, so I would never say this word in a modern context. We'll only say it in the context of quotes like this. And also a reminder that this word is different than the N-word. It's never okay for us to say the N-word out loud. We're not going to be reading it out loud in class ever. So those two words are different. So he gave this speech, James Baldwin, in 1965, where he said, "There is scarcely any hope for the American dream because the people who are denied participation in it by their very presence will wreck it." James Baldwin believed that in order to achieve the American dream, the United States had to address and acknowledge the history of slavery, the history of Jim Crow oppression, and that in order to achieve the American dream, the U.S. had to accept that history and come to terms with the oppression of Black people in this country. So this is our playwright, Lorraine Hansberry. She wrote A Raisin in the Sun. And as you read the play, A Raisin in the Sun, I want you to ask yourself what Hansberry might think about the American dream. Which of those four scholars do you think she might agree with? And what is the play saying about the American dream and how achievable it is for Black people? Now I want you to take a moment to reflect on what the American dream means to you. This might make you think about your own family, your own community. Do you think the American dream is possible? In what ways is it possible? In what ways is it not possible? So I want you to finish up your notes in the packet and then take a moment to reflect on your own opinions.